Imagine someone who thrived on controlling your emotions, dictating your actions, and bending you to their will, suddenly realizing they have absolutely no control over you. Most people think narcissists are unstoppable manipulators, but when faced with one simple strategy, unwavering boundaries and detachment, they can become completely powerless in the most profound way imaginable. If you want to fully understand how to neutralize a narcissist and protect yourself while taking control of your life, hit subscribe. Recognizing and practicing these strategies gives you ultimate psychological freedom. When dealing with a narcissist, the single most powerful strategy you can implement is establishing unshakable boundaries and refusing to tolerate manipulation. Narcissists thrive on testing limits, pushing buttons, and exploiting any ambiguity in your reactions or rules. If your boundaries are inconsistent or negotiable, they will see those gaps as opportunities to regain control. Setting clear, firm boundaries communicates that their attempts to dominate, guilt, or provoke you will no longer succeed, and this shift in dynamic fundamentally undermines their sense of power. Unshakable boundaries are not about aggression or punishment. They are about clarity, consistency, and self-respect. For example, refusing to engage when they try to provoke emotional reactions, declining to participate in manipulative games, or stating your limits calmly but firmly reinforces that their behavior is unacceptable and will not produce the results they expect. The more consistent you are, the more the narcissist realizes that their usual strategies are ineffective, which can be profoundly destabilizing for someone who depends on control and validation to maintain their self-image. Establishing these boundaries also creates a psychological shift in the relationship. The narcissist is forced to recognize that they cannot influence you, manipulate your emotions, or bend your behavior to their will. This awareness over time can lead to fixation as they become preoccupied with the fact that their control is lost. By maintaining these firm boundaries, you are not only protecting yourself from further manipulation, but also exerting the most powerful influence over a narcissist. The undeniable truth that they cannot dominate your mind, your emotions, or your life. When a narcissist sees that you are no longer emotionally reactive, they are forced to confront a reality they cannot control: your detachment. Emotional detachment is a powerful tool because narcissists feed on reactions, anger, guilt, frustration, or even fear, to maintain influence and validate their sense of superiority. When these reactions are removed, the narcissist loses their primary source of power, and the dynamics of the relationship shift entirely. Detachment does not mean being cold or indifferent in a harmful way. It means refusing to allow their manipulations, provocations, or demands to dictate your emotions or actions. Every time you remain calm in the face of criticism, ignore guilt trips, or refuse to engage in drama, you reinforce the message that you cannot be controlled. This consistency undermines the narcissist's attempts to manipulate your behavior and chips away at the foundation of their psychological leverage. The impact of emotional detachment is profound because narcissists are not equipped to process rejection or loss of influence in a healthy way. They may initially attempt to escalate manipulations, test boundaries, or provoke reactions through indirect means. Over time, however, the realization sets in that you are no longer accessible to their control. The absence of your emotional response becomes a mirror reflecting their inability to dominate, creating frustration, obsession, and a deep sense of powerlessness. By mastering detachment, you shift the relationship from one defined by their control to one where your autonomy dictates the dynamic. Emotional independence is the key to neutralizing manipulation and asserting authority over your own life, ultimately forcing the narcissist to adjust to a reality where they can no longer dictate outcomes or emotions. When you stop giving a narcissist validation or attention, you remove the fuel that sustains their sense of importance and control. Narcissists rely on external affirmation to maintain their grandiose self-image, and every compliment, acknowledgement, or emotional reaction feeds the narrative that they are superior, influential, and central. Without this reinforcement, their ego begins to feel unstable, and their strategies to dominate or manipulate lose effectiveness. Refusing to provide validation is more than ignoring flattery or refraining from praise. It's about consistently withholding reactions that they can exploit. When they make provocative statements, seek admiration, or attempt to impress, your neutral or non-reactive response communicates that their efforts no longer hold power over you. The narcissist quickly recognizes that their usual tactics, charm, intimidation, guilt, or flattery, no longer achieve the desired outcome, creating a sense of frustration and uncertainty. This withdrawal of attention also shifts the psychological balance. The narcissist becomes preoccupied with regaining influence because they are wired to measure their worth by others' reactions. By not feeding their ego, you assert control over the relationship dynamic and reinforce your own emotional independence. Over time, the narcissist's obsession with your autonomy may grow as they fixate on the one person who refuses to be manipulated. Recognizing that withholding validation is not a form of punishment but a strategic defense is key. It protects your boundaries, reinforces your power, and forces the narcissist to confront a reality they cannot control. By removing the attention they crave, you neutralize their influence and take decisive steps toward psychological freedom. When dealing with a narcissist, consistency in enforcing rules and consequences is a critical strategy that directly undermines their manipulative tactics. Narcissists test limits constantly. They push boundaries to see what they can get away with, and any inconsistency signals weakness, creating opportunities for exploitation. By remaining consistent in your responses, you remove ambiguity and deny them the psychological leverage they rely on to manipulate outcomes. Consistency communicates clearly that your boundaries are non-negotiable. Whether it's refusing to engage in arguments, maintaining limits around personal time, or holding firm against guilt or provocation, your consistent behavior signals to the narcissist that their usual strategies will not work. Over time, they realize that attempts to bend or influence you are futile, and their reliance on manipulation begins to fail. This approach also fosters psychological clarity for yourself. When you consistently enforce rules, you reduce the emotional confusion and gaslighting that narcissists often create. Each time you uphold a boundary without wavering, you reinforce your authority over your own life and decision-making, leaving the narcissist increasingly frustrated and obsessed with a reality they cannot control. Importantly, consistency works in tandem with other strategies like emotional detachment and withholding validation. Together, they create a framework in which the narcissist recognizes that their influence is gone and that they must either adapt to your terms or lose relevance entirely. By being unwavering, you transform the power dynamic. The narcissist can no longer dictate your emotions, decisions, or behavior, and your autonomy becomes the ultimate form of control over the relationship. When you refuse to engage in a narcissist's drama, games, or emotional traps, you remove the very mechanisms they use to maintain power over you. Narcissists thrive on reactions, arguments, guilt, fear, or defensiveness, because these responses validate their sense of control and importance. By disengaging completely from their provocations, you deny them the feedback they rely on, making their efforts ineffective and increasingly frustrating. Refusing engagement requires clarity and discipline. It means not debating, not explaining yourself excessively, and not allowing their manipulations to elicit anger or self-doubt. Whether they attempt to provoke jealousy, stir conflict, or incite guilt, your choice to remain calm and detached sends a clear message. You are not accessible to their control, and their usual tactics no longer work. Over time, this pattern disrupts the narcissist's internal narrative of dominance, leaving them mentally preoccupied with the fact that they cannot manipulate you. This disengagement is not passive. It is an active assertion of power. By consistently avoiding the emotional traps they set, you shift the psychological balance. The narcissist becomes aware that the usual levers of influence, your reactions, attention, and emotional responses, are no longer available to them, creating frustration and a sense of impotence. Understanding this dynamic is crucial because it shows that control over a narcissist does not come from confrontation or aggression, but from refusing to participate in their manipulative behaviors. By disengaging, you reclaim your autonomy, protect your emotional well-being, and force the narcissist to confront a reality where they cannot dictate outcomes or exert power over you. When you maintain self-respect and demonstrate that you cannot be controlled, you strike at the core of a narcissist's power. Narcissists derive their influence from perceiving weakness, vulnerability, or dependency in others. The moment they realize that you value yourself, uphold your principles, and refuse to bend to their manipulations, their usual strategies begin to fail. Your self-respect acts as a shield that blocks their attempts to dominate, guilt, or provoke you. Demonstrating this strength is not about confrontation or aggression. It is about consistently embodying your values and refusing to compromise on what matters. By calmly asserting your limits, honoring your needs, and refusing to be coerced emotionally, you make it clear that control is no longer attainable. Every act of self-respect, saying no, walking away, or simply holding your ground, reinforces your autonomy and signals to the narcissist that their usual levers of influence are ineffective. This strategy also has a psychological impact on the narcissist. Because they are wired to seek validation and dominance, witnessing your unyielding independence can create obsession, frustration, and a heightened desire to regain influence. Ironically, by being untouchable, you compel them to focus on your boundaries and consistency rather than your reactions, effectively making them subordinate to your autonomy in the psychological sense. Understanding that maintaining self-respect is both protective and strategic allows you to neutralize manipulation without engagement. Your steadfastness becomes the ultimate form of power. The narcissist cannot dictate your emotions, behavior, or decisions. And over time, this unwavering stance forces them to adapt to your terms, placing you firmly in control of the dynamic. When you use strategic silence with a narcissist, you remove the immediate feedback and attention they crave, forcing them to confront a reality they cannot control. Narcissists rely heavily on reactions, whether it's anger, guilt, fear, or validation, to feel influential and maintain their grandiose self-image. By remaining silent in the face of provocation or manipulation, you deny them that source of power and create a sense of uncertainty that they cannot easily tolerate. Strategic silence is not passive avoidance. It is a deliberate, controlled tactic. It communicates that you are unshakable, untouchable, and unavailable for their psychological games. When they attempt to provoke you, test boundaries, or draw you into drama, your refusal to respond becomes a mirror reflecting their lack of influence. Over time, this silence reinforces the message that their manipulations are ineffective, and their frustration or obsession grows because they cannot regain control through usual means. This approach also strengthens your own psychological position. By refusing to react, you protect your emotions, preserve clarity, and maintain the upper hand in the dynamic. The narcissist, accustomed to dominating interactions, is forced to observe, anticipate, and fixate on your behavior rather than dictate it, shifting the balance of power. Recognizing and implementing strategic silence is crucial because it is both a defensive and proactive measure. It neutralizes manipulation, reinforces boundaries, and asserts your autonomy. Over time, the narcissist becomes psychologically tethered to your consistency and detachment, effectively making them subordinate to your control, unable to influence, provoke, or manipulate you without your engagement. Ultimately, when you combine all these strategies, unshakable boundaries, emotional detachment, withholding validation, consistent rules, refusing engagement, maintaining self-respect, and strategic silence, You create a dynamic where the narcissist can no longer exert control. Their usual tools of manipulation, provocation, and psychological games become ineffective because the one person they cannot bend or influence is standing firm, unwavering, and emotionally independent. Over time, this forces them to confront a reality they are unprepared to handle. They are powerless over you. The narcissist thrives on control, validation, and emotional reactions. When these are consistently denied, they begin to obsess over your autonomy, preoccupied with ways they might regain influence or measure your strength. In a twisted sense, their fixation and dependence on your boundaries, consistency, and detachment make them psychologically subservient to your actions. Every act of self-respect and emotional independence reinforces the power shift, demonstrating that true influence lies not in manipulation, but in unwavering clarity and autonomy. It's important to understand that this is not about revenge or cruelty. It is about protecting yourself and asserting control over your own life. By refusing to participate in their games, maintaining consistency, and holding firm to your principles, you neutralize their influence and ensure that they are forced to adapt to your terms. The ultimate lesson is that the power of a narcissist is entirely dependent on your reactions. Take those away, and you reclaim authority, emotional freedom, and peace of mind, leaving them psychologically tethered to your strength for life. When you apply these strategies consistently, the dynamic with a narcissist changes completely. By setting unshakable boundaries, detaching emotionally, withholding validation, enforcing rules, refusing to engage in their drama, maintaining self-respect, and using strategic silence, you take away the very tools they rely on to control and manipulate. Narcissists thrive on reactions, attention, and compliance. Remove those, and their influence evaporates. What was once a relationship defined by their control becomes one where your autonomy dictates the terms. Over time, this consistent stance forces the narcissist to confront a reality they cannot accept easily. They no longer hold power over you. Their obsession grows, not because you are reacting to them, but because you are untouchable, consistent, and independent. In essence, your unwavering strength becomes the focal point of their attention, making them psychologically tethered to your behavior and completely unable to manipulate or dominate. It's critical to understand that this is not about revenge or cruelty. It's about asserting your autonomy, protecting your emotional well-being, and maintaining control over your own life. A narcissist's power exists only when you participate in their games or feed their ego. When you stop, the balance shifts entirely in your favor. Ultimately, the key lesson is simple but profound. By mastering your boundaries, reactions, and self-respect, you neutralize manipulation, reclaim your emotional freedom, and ensure that the narcissist can no longer control, provoke, or influence you. Your consistency and strength create a psychological reality in which they are effectively subordinate to your autonomy for life.